Hello everyone, welcome to my lecture series of electromagnetic fields. We will discuss different theories, phenomena and numerical solution of different cases in this series. I hope this series will give a fruitful outcome to physics scholars or engineering students. We have covered different phenomena related with vector algebra. We have also seen the types of coordinate system. I request you to refer this previous videos of this channel to refer that part. Now we are going to start electrostatics and we will cover some introduction, then Coulomb's law. After that we'll cover vector form of Coulomb's law and finally principle of superposition for this video. So let us begin. Electrostatics is a science related to the electric charges which are static. Static in the sense the charges are not moving anywhere. A charge, either positive or negative, has its effect in a region around it, and such region is termed as electric field of that charge. So we can witness the electric field of either positive or negative charge. This field does not vary with time, hence it is also called static electric field. The study of such time invariant electric fields produced by different charge distributions in a space or vacuum or mediums is called electrostatics. So ultimately in electrostatics we will study the phenomenon related with such time invariant electric fields. The real life applications of electrostatics are the cathode ray tube, or say computer peripheral devices, say a printer, then X-ray machines in biotech engineering, spray painting in manufacturing industry, or electrodeposition. Fine. There are many more applications such that electrostatic precipitators, fine, and you will find them in any power plant. So there are huge applications of electrostatics in real life. Today we are going to learn the very fundamental law of electrostatics which is known as Coulomb's law. So just for the reference, the Charles Coulomb was a colonel in a French army engineer, and this law was formulated by him in 1785. And some concepts which are essential to know for the understanding of Coulomb's law are point charge, charge on atom, and what is 1 Coulomb charge. So the first point is point charge. So point charge is something, say I have an atom anywhere in the space and my space of interest is quite large compared to the dimension of this particle. Fine. So at such instance this particle can be referred as point charge. Fine. So point charge is nothing but a particle whose dimension are negligible compared to the space of interest. Fine. So the second thing that we should understand is charge on atom. So naturally every atom is electrically neutral. Fine, because we will find the same number of proton in the nucleus of any atom and the equal number of electron revolving around the nucleus. So any atom in its natural state is electrically neutral. Fine. But for any atom, if it conveys some electrons by any means, then it can either get positively charged or negatively charged. Fine. Say for example, this atom do some interaction with another neighboring atom and it acquires one electron from the neighboring atom to itself, then it will have the excess of electrons, hence we can say that this atom is negatively charged. On the other hand, if this does not happen and this second atom takes one electron from the first atom, then on this atom there will be a deficiency of electron, and we can say that this atom is positively charged, and the number of electrons it deficient, the positive or negative polarity will be stronger. Fine. So the charge on atom is to be understood like this. And third thing is 1 coulomb charge. Fine. We know that charge on any electron is minus 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Coulomb is a unit of charge. Fine. Here minus indicates that the polarity of charge on electron is negative. Fine. So if we want to find out that how much electron will be there in 1 coulomb charge, then simply we can do by 1 upon minus 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. It will give you minus 6.25 into 10 raised to 18. Fine. Electrons. It means that in 1 coulomb charge the excessiveness of electron will be 6.25 billion electrons. So the 1 coulomb of charge is not a small quantity. It acquires 6.25 billion electrons. Okay. So after understanding these three terms, now let us learn about Coulomb's law. The first law of Coulomb is like charges repel while unlike charges attract each other. This is the first law of Coulomb. Secondly, Coulomb states that an electrostatic force between 2 point charges Q1 and Q2 will act along the line joining the two charges, that is Q1 and Q2. It will be directly proportional to the magnitude of the charges, and the force will be inversely proportional to the square of the distance between these two charges, that is Q1 and Q2. Fine. And as it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between charges, this law is also referred as the inverse square law. Fine. Same way, gravitational force is also referred as inverse square force. So here we are considering three cases. In first case, one proton and one electron is considered. In second case, two electrons are considered, and in third case, two protons are considered. Fine. So referring to the law of Coulomb, the force between these two charges will act along the line joining both the charges. So for first case, the direction of force will be on this dotted line. For second and third case, the direction of force will be on these dotted lines. Now the like charges will repel, so and unlike charges will attract each other. So in first case we will have the force of attraction between these two charges, because at one end we have put a proton and another charge is electron, which is negatively charged. So unlike charges will attract each other while like charges will repel each other. Fine. So this is the very fundamental way to just depict the direction of force. Fine. Now if we want to calculate this force mathematically, then the force between two charges Q1 and Q2, which are separated with distance r from each other, can be mathematically determined as F is proportional to multiplication of values of charge, that is Q1 and Q2, divided by the square of the distance between them. So F is proportional to Q1 Q2 divided by R square. And this force is also dependent on the medium in which both charges are kept. Hence, the effect of medium can be introduced in this equation as a constant of proportionality. So if we want to remove this sign of proportionality and want to put an equal sign, then we must introduce some constant of proportionality. Here we have introduced small k as a constant of proportionality. So force F is equals to k q1 q2 upon r square. Fine. Here I have not put any arrows on the quantity, hence this is just a scalar force, or magnitude of force can be calculated by this equation. Now, to satisfy Coulomb's law, the constant of proportionality is defined as k equals to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon, where epsilon is the absolute permittivity of the medium in which the both charges are put or kept, and it is further defined as the multiplication of epsilon 0 epsilon r, where epsilon 0 is the permittivity of free space, which is given as 8.854 into 10 raised to minus 12 Faraday per meter. It is very well known value and it must be remembered at the time of exam. And epsilon r is called the relative permittivity or dielectric constant of that medium with respect to free space. Fine. And for free space, the value of k can be calculated as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0. Putting the value of epsilon 0 as 8.854 into 10 raised to minus 12, we will get the value of k as 9 into 10 raised to 9 meter per Faraday. Fine. So for free space, the value of k is 9 into 10 raised to 9, while the value of epsilon 0, that is permittivity, it will be 8.854 into 10 raised to minus 12. Fine. The unit of both epsilon 0 and k will be inverse because both are having inverse relation with each other. Now, vector form of Coulomb's law. The electrostatic force exerted between two charges always acts along the line connecting them, and hence these forces can be easily expressed in vector form. So let us consider a Cartesian coordinate system. Here, for easiness of your understanding, I have kept two-dimensional Cartesian plane. Fine. Otherwise, the same thing will be equally applicable for three-dimensional plane. So we have defined the origin as the intersection of horizontal and vertical axis, and we are assuming two positive charges or two protons, let us say q1 and q2. Then how can we determine the force or electrostatic force in vector form? Fine. So for that, first we will draw the position vector of both the charges. So r1 and r2 are the position vectors of q1 and q2 respectively. Then we will decide on which charge we need to find the force. So here I want to find the force on this charge q2. Fine. And we know that this force will always act along the line joining q1 and q2. So this is the line joining q1 and q2, and as both the charges are positive, the force of repulsion will be there. So I have mentioned F21 over here. Fine. Now the convention to write this sign is F stands for force, then in the subscript we will write number. So the first number depicts the charge on which the force is being acting. And the second number 1, that is by which charge the force is being active. fine. So this is very general convention that we are using. So F21 stands for the charge on Q2 by Q1, fine. If I write like this F12 bar, then one should understand this sign as the force on charge Q1 due to charge Q2. Okay, so by doing so we need to find the distance vector from Q1 to Q2, fine. So this R12 is nothing but a distance vector which is defined as R2 minus R1. Please refer previous videos for the better understanding of distance vector. Okay, and this is the direction of force, which is nothing but the unit vector in the direction of distance vector. Okay, so by such information, F21 bar can vectorially be represented as K into Q1 into Q2 divided by modulus of R12 square, fine. So this is nothing but the distance between Q1 and Q2, fine. So as we know that this force is inversely proportional to square of the distance, so modulus of R12 square. And as we need to depict this force in vector form, then we must need a direction. See, this calculation will give you the amount of force. This calculation will give you the amount of force, while direction can be represented by a unit vector. So A12 bar is showing the direction of force over here. We can also say that the distance vector between Q1 and Q2, it is represented by R12 bar, which is equals to R2 bar minus R1 bar, fine. So the position vector of a charge on which the force is being exerted is subtracted from the position vector of a charge due to which the force is being exerted, and this unit vector can be calculated as R2 bar minus R1 bar divided by modulus of R2 bar minus R1 bar, fine. Now let us consider modulus of R12 bar is equals to modulus of R2 bar minus R1 bar is equals to R, fine, just for the ease of representation, nothing else. So doing so, this force F21 bar will now be equal to K Q1 Q2 upon R square A12 bar, fine, where A12 bar just indicate the direction of the force. Now if we put the value of A12 bar as R12 bar divided by modulus of R12 bar, then this equation will become F21 bar equals to K Q1 Q2 divided by R cube into distance vector from charge Q1 to Q2, which is nothing but R12 bar. And finally, in the simplest form, we can write the equation as K Q1 Q2 upon R cube R2 bar minus R1 bar Newton. Now there is a very interesting observation for the electrostatic force, that the force exerted by two charges on each other are equal but in opposite direction. So if I am finding F21 bar, then F12 bar will be of same magnitude but in opposite direction. Okay, so F12 bar, that is force on charge Q1 due to charge Q2, can be written as K Q1 Q2 upon R square into, now as the direction is opposite, so A12 bar will now be in the opposite direction, so minus A12 bar. So this three form of F21 bar can also be used to find F12 bar, because only the direction will be opposite, the magnitude will be same for both the forces. So F12 bar will be equal to negative k q1 q2 upon r cube into r12 bar. Or one can also find this force F12 by k q1 q2 upon r cube, say, because distance between q1 and q2 will not change. Okay, so r cube will be there as it is. Only the difference it will make is here you will calculate r2 bar minus r1 bar, while finding the value of f12 bar we will perform r1 bar minus r2 bar. Okay, so this is a vectorial representation of Coulomb's law. Let us consider the same case with a practical example. So these are the coordinates of q1 and q2. Fine, here q1 and q2 both are protons. Fine, so being proton, the value of q1 and q2 is nothing but 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Fine, now consider this coordinate system as each square represent 1 meter square area. Fine, then x coordinate of q1 is 3, y coordinate of q1 is 5. Similarly, x coordinate of q2 is 8 and y coordinate of q2 is 3. Fine, so vectorially the position vector of q1, that is r1 bar, can be shown as 3ax bar plus 5ay bar, and position vector of q2 can be represented as 8ax bar plus 3ay bar. Now the force F21 bar is nothing but k into q1 into q2 divided by distance square into the particular direction, that is joining these two charges. Fine, so for this we need to find the distance vector. So distance vector r12 bar can be calculated as r2 minus r1 bar. So doing the calculation we will have 5ax bar minus 2ay bar, and the distance between q1 and q2, which is nothing but magnitude of r12 bar. So magnitude of any distance vector can be calculated by under root of square of x coordinate plus square of y coordinate. So it will give you under root 29, which is roughly equal to, or say keep it as it is. Fine, now putting all these values, fine, in this equation we can have k, it has a value of 9 into 10 raised to 9 for free space. Also assume that both the charges are in free space. Okay, so value of k will be 9 into 10 raised to 9. q1, both are proton and both are having the charge 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. So q1 into q2 can be written as 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 whole square divided by, here it is more important, or say more convenient, to use this equation rather this one. Fine, so we are going to use this equation for the calculation. So modulus of r12 cube, modulus of r12 is nothing but under root 29, so we will write root 29 cube, and r2 minus r1, r2 minus r1 we have found as 5ax bar minus 2ay bar. Fine, so now simplifying this equation we will have 0.1475 into 10 raised to minus 29 5ax bar minus 2ay bar. This is the value of F21. Fine, and now multiplying this constant with these two base vectors, we will have 0.7375 ax bar minus 0.295 ay bar multiplied by 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. So as you can see, for two electrons or protons which are separated with several meters from each other, so they will possess very less force, because here it is 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. Fine. So practically it may possible that you will not observe any movement of electron and proton, or say two proton or two electron by such huge distance. Okay. So but however, we cannot say that by separating any proton or electron by several meters, it will not possess any effect on the other charge. Fine. Definitely it will have some finite effect on other charge, irrespective of whatever distance the both charges are kept. Fine. Now the observation F12, we can simply say that the magnitude will be same, only the direction will be changed. So F12 can directly be written as minus 0.7375 ax bar, and this will become plus 0.295 ay bar into 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. Fine. So we can say that F21 bar is exactly equal to F12 bar in opposite direction. Okay. So this is how we can calculate any electrostatic force on any charge due to different charges. Fine. Now let us understand what is the principle of superposition. So if there are more than two charges, then each charge will exert a force on other charges, and the net force on any charge due to multiple charges can be determined by the principle of superposition. So again, I am going to consider a two-dimensional Cartesian plane in which three different charges, one electron and two protons, fine, three different charges are placed. So and a test charge, that is of 1 coulomb, that I am using over here, or say 1 proton I am using over here. Fine. I am using proton as a test charge. Okay. And if you want to find the force on this charge Qt due to Q1, Q2 and Q3 all, then first we will draw the position vector of each charges, then we will find the distance vector of Q1 and Qt, and then we will say that the force will be in this direction. Fine. Why in this direction? Because Q1 is negatively charged, Qt is positively charged, so force of attraction will be there on the line joining Q1 and Qt. Fine. And the same procedure will be followed for other two charges, that is Q2 and Q3. So this is the distance vector between Q3 and Qt, this is the distance vector between Q2 and Qt, and this will be the direction of Ft3, that is force on Qt due to Q3, and this will be the direction of force Ft2. Okay. So the principle of superposition can be used over here. How? Let us see. So the net force on the test charge is the vector sum of above three forces. So Ft1 here can be written as minus Q1 Qt divided by R1 T cube R1 minus R1 bar. Okay. So here negative sign comes into the picture because Q1 is electron, okay, or negatively charged. So negative sign is describing that any one of charge is negative. Okay. Then the force on charge qt by this charge q2 can be represented by this equation. This is nothing but a vector form of Coulomb's law. And similarly, ft3, which is nothing but kq3 qt divided by modulus of r3t cube r bar minus r3 bar Newton. And now vectorially adding these three forces, we will have the net force on the charge qt. Okay, so this will be our final equation, that is the net force on qt due to charges q1, q2 and q3. Okay, and now if n charges are there and the net force on any one particular charge is to be determined, then there is a general equation which can be used. So the general form of superposition principle can be depicted as ft bar is equal to k into qt summation of from I equals to 1 to n. Here n is number of charges. Fine. qi divided by modulus of r bar minus ri bar cube multiplied by r bar minus ri bar Newton. Okay, so here you can also say that kqt can be kept as common, then summation of 1 to n. Here three charges are there, so q1 divided by r1t cube into r bar minus r1 bar. Same way for q2 and q3. Okay, so this is how we can use the principle of superposition. Now for your reference only, again I have kept the position vector of each and every charges. So let us solve this case. Here position vector of q1, that is r1 bar, is nothing but 2ax bar plus 9 ay bar. See, the same kind of calculation is equally applicable on three-dimensional Cartesian system. Fine. Here just for the easiness of understanding, I have taken two-dimensional system. So r2 bar can vectorially be represented as 11ax bar plus 7 ay bar. r3 bar, that is position vector of q3, here is nothing but 3ax bar plus 4 ay bar, and position vector of our test charge, that is r bar, is equals to 8ax bar plus 3 ay bar. Fine. Here q1 is, or the negative q1 is minus 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. q2, q3 and qt, that is remaining three charges which are positive, is having the charge of 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Fine. So now to find each force individually, we are going to need the distance vector. So r bar minus r1 bar will be 6ax bar minus 6 ay bar, and modulus, that is the distance between q1 and qt, will be equal to under root 6 square plus minus 6 square, so which is will be equal to under root 72, and it will be roughly 8.485. okay, to find the second force, we are going to need the distance vector between q2 and qt, which is nothing but r bar minus r2 bar. So this will be minus 3ax bar minus 4 ay bar, and modulus of this subtraction, or say distance vector, will be the distance between q2 and qt. Fine. So 3 square 9, 4 square 16, adding 9 plus 16 will be 25, and under root 25 will be 5. And for third charge, that is q3, r bar minus r3 bar, that is distance vector between q3 and qt, can be calculated as plus 5 ax bar minus ay bar. Okay, so this modulus, that is the distance between q3 and qt, is going to be under root the square of x coordinate 25 plus square of y coordinate 1, so it will be 26, and which will be around 5.1. okay, so now we are having the distance vectors as well as the magnitude or the distance between the charges. Fine, so we can find Ft1, so force on Qt by Q1, so it will be, here the equation of force will be K Q1 Q2 upon R cube, or let me write just a generalized equation. So in generalized form, Ft bar will be K Qt summation from I equals to 1 to n Qi divided by R minus Ri modulus cube into R bar minus Ri bar. Fine, so for Ft1 bar we will have value of K, which is 9 into 10 raised to 9. The first charge is negative, so here minus sign will be there, 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. The second charge is positive, so the sign will not change, but the amount of charge here on Qt is also 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19, so we will just simply put the square over here divided by the distance between Q1 and Qt. So we just have derived this distance as 8.485 cube, and the distance vector between Q1 and Qt, which is nothing but 6ax bar minus 6ay bar, and simplifying this we will have minus 0.226 ax bar plus 0.226 ay bar whole multiplied by 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. Similarly, we can calculate Ft2 bar and Ft3 bar. Fine, so I want you to calculate these two forces and suggest me if I am wrong over here. You will find the value of Ft2 as minus 0.552 ax bar minus 0.736 ay bar whole multiplied by 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. It is very good practice to represent or to show a unit for each and every quantity. Fine, and similarly the force Ft3, after calculation you will find it as 0.87 ax bar minus 0.174 ay bar whole multiplied by 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. And now the net force on Qt, so Ft bar, is nothing but the vector sum of these three individual forces. So Ft1 bar plus Ft2 bar plus Ft3 bar, and doing so you will find 0.092 ax bar minus 0.684 ay bar whole multiplied by 10 raised to minus 29 Newton. Fine, so in the combined effect of these three charges, that is Q1, Q2 and Q3, this charge will slightly move to positive x direction, c 0.092, and simultaneously it will move to negative y direction, because 0.684, which is greater than 0.092. So the direction of the resultant force will be like this. So this test charge qt will move in this slant downward direction. Fine. And this charge will also have its effect on remaining three charges. Fine. So q2 will move on the combinational effect of q1, q3 and qt as well. Fine. But here the force on q2 is not of our interest. Fine. We just need to find the force on test charge qt. So here, with the help of principle of superposition, we can find the force of any particular charges due to multiple charges. Okay, thank you.